fresh meat.
Welcome to the best horror movie you never saw, where we shine a light on horror movies that you may have missed, haven't seen in a long time, or just plain forgot about. The vampire comedy is a tried and true genre mashup. Vampires can just as easily be funny as they can be scary. Throughout the years, Hollywood, as well as the independent film world, has often seen fit to churn out an innumerable array of movies where we're invited to laugh at the bloodsuckers of the night. Some are more successful than others. Fright Night, which can be considered a comedy at least periodically, is one of the reigning champs. Same could be said for The Lost Boys, and 2014's What We Do in the Shadows is easily one of the better vampire comedies of modern times. But the options are few and far between. All too often, though, we are subjected to abominations like Vampire in Brooklyn, Apologies West, Transylvania, Love at First Bite, and the appropriately titled Vampire Suck.
Oh yeah!
Movies that can't be considered scary or funny, lame-brained flicks that would make Bram Stoker stake himself in his grave. Which brings us to the certifiably crazy oddity known as Vamp, which is a vampire comedy like no other.
Did you ever have one of those nights?
It's a real, funky, and self-aware piece of cheese that has the 80s running through its veins and a blood alcohol level well over the legal limit. It's like the funniest nightmare you ever had, like a trip to another universe, a twisted time capsule in which the vampire myth is injected with frat boy humor and presented in the garish neon colors of an over-the-top music video. It's both strange and silly, dopey and clever, and it's completely unlike anything else the unreliable genre has to offer. I want to thank you guys for watching the best horror movie you never saw, and ask that if you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now. Like the video and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. And now, back to the show. Vamp is its own thing by a mile and a half. Try to describe it is an impossibility, since the bare bones of the plot offer no clue as to what you're getting into when you press play. But here's the gist. Boneheaded bros Keith and AJ are attempting to get into a fraternity even though it's clear they have nothing but contempt for the dimwits they'd be joining. Such is life in a frat, I suppose? In an effort to impress these mouth breathers, the duo concoct a scheme, not very complicated really, to hire a stripper from nearby LA and bring her to a frat party. Finding themselves without a car, they enlist the help of rich dork Duncan, whose desperation for friends of any kind, even the fake kind, finds him willing to lend the boys his car for an evening, provided they bring him along, of course. The three hit the town and, after a brief bit of trouble with a gang of hair-sprayed thugs, reach their sleazy destination, an eyesore of a strip club that looks like a rejected set from a Miami Vice episode. Here, the ladies look to be much cheaper than the booze, and so it would appear as though our goofy heroes have stumbled upon the right place. Only one problem, and of course you can guess what that is. The place is riddled with more vampires than it is STDs. Not all these vampires are created equal, however. Some are bored-looking strippers, some are wheezy old mafia goons who look at the end of their ropes, and one is, well, Katrina. And Katrina has to be seen to be believed. After it becomes all too obvious that this is not the place to be, it's going to take our wannabe frat brothers a lot more than their questionable wit or charm to make it through the night. While it's easy to think this is a predecessor of From Dusk Till Dawn, which would be released 10 years later, Vamp isn't really the tale of dudes fighting their way through an array of scantily clad bloodsuckers. Interestingly enough, the vampire aspect of the film is only a small part of it. The vampires aside, Vamp is more like one of those one hell of a night dark comedies like Martin Scorsese's After Hours, where a baffled and increasingly frantic hero discovers he can neither find the person he needs to find, the help he seeks, or the way out of the place he's trapped in. In the world of Vamp, this small section of LA becomes a freakish hellscape after dark, with not only vampires but all manner of psychos and creeps roaming the streets. It's an amusing, recurring theme that no matter how much he knows the strip club is a place of danger, our hero Keith keeps returning to it throughout the night in order to simply get off the street, which is an even worse place to be. Scene after scene finds Keith watching slack-jawed while some terrible, inexplicable thing occurs right before his disbelieving eyes, and it's only his loyalty to his missing pal that keeps him from getting the hell out of Dodge by any means necessary. The film was directed by Richard Wank, who was making his feature debut after impressing Hollywood with a student film he made at NYU. Wank clearly went to town with a young director's enthusiasm, crafting a movie that has a steady, pulsating urgency. It's sometimes a glossy dream, sometimes a sugar-coated nightmare. Enhancing this vision is the cinematography by Elliot Davis, who would go on to shoot several Steven Soderbergh pictures. Davis lights every scene in surreal colors. Sickly yellows, dark purples, intense greens. Even the sewer system is lit like a disco in this strange world. We don't question it. We accept Vamp on its own terms because it's vividly alive, even when it's coming ever so close to being a parody. And for some, it might be just that. The movie is an amusing, tongue-in-cheek romp that simply aims to deliver a fun time to an unsuspecting audience. And though it never takes itself seriously, Vamp can't be easily labeled a comedy. It has a personality all its own, neither comedy nor horror film, neither disposable fluff nor meaningful art. It's the very definition of a cult classic, not easily definable, not checking the standard boxes of any one genre. If you were to bring it up amongst a group of like-minded individuals, you'd be off to the races discussing your favorite weird moments or stylistic flourishes. The cast is a good one for this kind of insanity. Chris Makepeace, one of those 80s staples who seem to only ever exist in that one decade, stars as Keith, our affable, if somewhat clueless hero. With his blandly handsome baby face sporting an expression of bafflement throughout, Makepeace is a likable foil for the many crazed and confounding people and vampires he encounters throughout the film's brisk 94 minutes. He's like Zach Galligan light, surely not a movie star, but a believable boy next door. As his crude alpha male bro, AJ, Robert Russler is dynamite in a role that needs him to be funny, douchey, and even a little pathetic sometimes. Russler is another one of those dudes we encountered plenty of times in the 80s, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and Weird Science probably being his most notable efforts, and he's got charisma to spare even when he's a grotesque member of the undead. Thankfully, bringing a girlish touch to the proceedings is Dee Dee Pfeiffer, yes, Michelle's sister, as a cute strip club waitress who hasn't been there long enough to know it's a dumping ground for slovenly vampires. There's something rather lovable about Pfeiffer's sweet but sexy amaretto as she tries to connect with the clueless Keith with whom she once shared a memorable night. The movie might veer further into sleazy territory if it weren't for Pfeiffer's winning smile and plucky attitude. Finally, as the villains of the piece, we get a very disparate group. Vamp wouldn't be Vamp without the presence of Grace Jones as head bloodsucker Katrina. Everything about Jones's performance, from her steely gaze to her insane costumes and makeup, is hypnotic and completely at home with the rest of this crazy movie. Then you've got Sandy Barron as the manager of the club, a tired, bored old-timer who only wants to get out of this racket and move to Las Vegas. Fans of Seinfeld will recognize Barron as the obnoxious Floridian Jack Klompus, and he's no less grouchy here. Finally, another infamous 80s character or actor arrives to make things even more unhinged. Billy Drago as an albino punk named Snow, who's just an all-around unpleasant person to be around. Drago had one of the all-time great bad guy faces, and it adds a lot to this whacked-out world. Finally, much praise should be heaped upon the gnarly makeup effects by Greg Canham, the whiz behind the game-changing prosthetics of films like Dracula, Mrs. Doubtfire, and Vice. Vamp doesn't offer wall-to-wall vampires the way From Dusk Till Dawn does, but when we finally get to see what's hiding under the surface of some of these folks, it's a very impressive and ugly state of affairs indeed. The makeup on Jones's Katrina is particularly memorable and ghastly, and one could see where it might have inspired other vamps in future movies and TV shows. Even if you've seen them all before or too many times and you're looking for a different kind of vampire comedy, we've got the one for you. It's not too friendly, but not too mean, eager to please, and mostly easy on the eyes. So consider bringing Vamp home to your fraternity. It knows how to get the job done, and you won't have to worry about catching anything from it except a fun time.